Morning, Johnny.
You've welcomed the new money for the NHS, but you've criticised the rise in national insurance that funds it. How would you find the money?
Yeah, well, we certainly have welcomed the NHS money, and we do accept that there was a economic mismanagement of the Conservatives left a big black hole to be filled. The question is how you went about that. And in the general election, we talked about how we would have done that. So we talked about asking the big banks to pay more, reversing the tax cuts the Conservatives have given to the big banks. We talked about asking the social media giants to pay more. We talked about a different reform of capital gains tax, which would have been actually fairer for small investors, but actually raised more from the very wealthy. So we had a different tax package, and I'm really worried about the tax proposals they put forward. I think it is going to hit small business, and I'm really worried about the inheritance tax changes for family farms, small family farms. So we have some real worries about how they're raising this money, as well as you heard in that clip from yesterday in Parliament, what they're doing on care. That is a real worry, because what we've been saying for quite a few years now is if you're going to sort out the NHS, you have to sort out social care. And there was almost nothing on that in the budget. So I'm afraid, yes, it's good to see more money in the NHS, of course, but I'm not sure if that's going to work unless you sort out social care too.
You mentioned the inheritance tax on farms, and the former leader, Tim Farron, was pretty vociferous about this yesterday. What is your key concern there? Because I'm fairly sure the Labour government sort of says this really isn't going to affect that many people.
I just think they're wrong. There's about 50% of farms are worth more than 1.5 million. So half of our farms could be hit by this. And that's going to have a massive damage to our agriculture and to families and communities in our rural areas.
They are assets, aren't they? I mean, why shouldn't they be taxed?
The point is, if you're investing in your countryside, in your farms, you need it through generations. And that's been accepted across parties for many years now. And I'm really worried about our rural communities and our farmers as a result of this budget. Let's remember that they've already hit by the Conservatives, losing markets in Europe, the trade deals that have damaged them so badly, the failure to support to reform the subsidy schemes as we came out of Europe. So they've already been hit so many times. And of course, the bad weather. So the farmers are on their knees in many parts of our country. This is the worst news for them. So we're genuinely worried about that, as well as the impact on small businesses as well. And if I can come back to care providers, the government have exempted the NHS from these rise in employers' national insurance contributions. But small care providers, who are about 98% of people providing care in care homes and in people's own homes, they're going to be hit by this big rise in national insurance contributions. And many of them will go to the wall. So this is really serious, because if you're seeing the care sector not invested, if you're seeing care providers probably leaving the market in some areas, that's going to undermine care, which will make the NHS problems even worse.
You have picked up an awful lot of new voters in new seats at the election, and that may have changed your priorities a little. Can I ask you about the VAT, so-called VAT raid on private schools? Will you vote in favour of that?
No, we'll vote against it.
Why is that?
Well, because we think a tax on education is the wrong thing to do, in principle, frankly. And we're really worried that this is very ill thought through, how it's going to affect small private schools who are looking after children and young people with special education needs, for example. So I think it's really poorly thought through. And that's why at the general election we put forward alternative ideas.
We will leave it there. Sir Ed Davey, thank you very much. Thanks for coming in.